studying W.D. Wattle's The Science of Getting Rich. This is Terry Scott, the Life and Legacy Coach, teaching people how to determine their destiny, to live their destiny, and leave a legacy. Live a life and leave a legacy. And live in abundance and balance. And it all comes together when you know what your destiny is. Now, yesterday, or the time before this anyway, it was yesterday for me. I'm not sure when you looked at the first module, but we've covered the preface of this book and also the first chapter. In a moment, we'll go to chapter 2, but if you were listening and you viewed the chapter 1 and also the preface of yesterday, you'll know that I stumbled over some of those names in the preface. So I've done my homework, and the correct pronunciation is Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz, Schopenhauer, and Hegel. So I'm letting you know about that because one of the reasons why we're not as successful as we should be is we see opportunity all around us. And sometimes opportunity is disguised in things that we don't know. So then we're not aware of them. We don't care about them. They're not within our interest. They're outside of our regular interest. So when we see a name or word that we're unfamiliar with, we should ask more questions and get more information and learn about that, because when we do that, we're actually expanding our mind exponentially, because it isn't just about that one instance that we're learning, but that one thing that we're learning is multifaceted, and each one of those facets have the potential of growing and becoming something. So I did my homework, I looked at that, and perhaps you did too. And some of you listening, of course, you were able to understand, you knew what those names were, how they were pronounced, and that sort of thing. And you probably thought, oh my goodness, listen to this guy trying to teach this and trying to talk about it. And that too is a lesson, I think, because even though I didn't know about these names, my background and experience gives me some credibility in being able to present this course. And of course, this is also about you, and I like to make things even more about the other person than myself. So when you're doing this, when you're going through this course, again, I hope that you're printing out the worksheets, and if you printed out this particular PDF of The Science of Getting Rich, I hope that you're underlining it and you're writing in the margins, you're highlighting things. And that's very important because that brings inspiration to you. And I touched on this the last time because you have a different set of experiences, a different set of background. And those experiences and that background has created for you a lens that you look through. And because of that lens, sometimes you miss things, but sometimes you see things. And that really doesn't matter, because that what you see is what you're meant to see. And what you miss is what you are meant to miss. As time goes on, you become more aware and you start seeing more things and you become more enlightened. And again, each one of those facets that I spoke about become bigger and they grow. So Descartes, he's been heralded as the first modern philosopher. Spinoza is one of the most important philosophers, and he was very radical. And then Leibniz, he was one of the great thinkers of the 17th and 18th centuries. Now Schopenhauer, he was among the 19th century philosophers to contend that the universe is not a rational place. He was inspired by Plato and Kant, and both of whom regarded the world as being more amenable to reason. And Schopenhauer developed their philosophies into an instinct recognizing and ultimately ascetic outlook. And again, a lot of big words there and all of that. But I want you to just go and do a little research on your own about each one of these people. Because Wallace actually spoke about these people in his book and in the preface. So this tells me that these people were very important in influences for him. Also, Waldo Emerson. Now, here's a person that I was at least aware of the name and aware of him a little bit, but it was very interesting when because I'm an American and he was an American essayist, but he was a lecturer, a philosopher, and a poet, and he led the transcendental movement in the mid-19th century, and there's a lot about him that I didn't know, and I think that he definitely is a person that I'm going to be doing more research about. So let's move on to chapter 2 of the book, The Science of Getting Rich. And again, chapter 1 was the right to be rich, and we all have that right to be rich. And I know that when people hear things such as, let me see here, I actually created a little meme or a little poster and I put it up in social media, and I'm sure I'm going to get people on both sides of the aisle that no, you shouldn't be getting too rich or whatever. And it's unfortunate that people do think that way. But when I talked in our last time together, I mentioned that basically we are just like a tree. And to think that that tree should not grow to its fullest extent is ludicrous. So why then do we look at ourselves and think we should not attain our full potential? And people think, well, you know what? I've grown, I've matured in body, I've come up to my full potential. Or I now have a job, I have a family, I have 4 kids, I'm working, I've got my weekends off, but things are doing pretty well. We've got a little cabin on the lake, and life just goes by and by. You know what? I've reached my potential. I really don't think so, and I hope that by going through this, those facets that I've just talked about, maybe one of the facets is that you need to become more aware of the potential that you have. Maybe there's something in your life, a talent, a skill, or something that you felt, you know what, I like doing this, but I never thought I could make an income with it. Or people said that I was a good cook, or people said that I do sing well. And I'd love to sing, but I don't know if I can make any money at it, and that sort of thing. Well, again, I teach about destiny, and I believe that when you are living your destiny, that things happen for you so easily because you're like that tree. The tree is meant to grow, and it's meant to be a tree. So you are meant to be whatever your destiny is for you to be. So I'm just kind of looking back at chapter 1 a little bit. So here is chapter 2. There is a science of getting rich. There is a science of getting rich, and it is an exact science, like algebra or arithmetic. There are certain laws which govern the process of acquiring riches. Once these laws are learned and obeyed by any man, he will get rich with mathematical certainty. The ownership of money and property comes as a result of doing things in a certain way. Those who do things in this certain way, whether on purpose or accidentally, get rich, while those who do not do things in a certain way, no matter how hard they work or how able they are, remain poor. It is a natural law that like causes always produce like effects, and therefore any man or woman who learns to do things in this certain way will infallibly get rich. That the above statement is true is shown by the following facts. Getting rich is not a matter of environment, for if it were, all the people in certain neighborhoods would certainly become wealthy. The people of one city would all be rich, while those of the other towns would all be poor. Or the inhabitants of one state would roll in wealth, while those of an adjoining state would be in poverty. But everywhere we see rich and poor living side by side in the same environment and often engaged in the same vocations. When two men are in the same locality and in the same business, the one gets rich while the other remains poor. It shows that getting rich is not primarily a matter of environment. Some environments may be more favorable than others, but when two men in the same business are in the same neighborhood and one gets rich while the other fails, it indicates that getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way. And further, the ability to do things in this certain way is not due solely to the possession of talent. For many people who have great talent remain poor, while others who have very little talent get rich. Studying the people who have got rich, we find that they are an average lot in all respects, having no greater talents and abilities than other men. It is evident that they do not get rich because they possess talents and abilities that other men have not, but because they happen to do things in a certain way. Getting rich is not the result of saving or thrift. Many very penurious people are poor, while free spenders often get rich. Nor is getting rich due to doing things which others fail to do. For two men in the same business often do almost exactly the same things, and one gets rich while the other remains poor or becomes a bankrupt. From all these things, we must come to the conclusion that getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way. If getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way, and if like causes always produce like effects, then any man or woman who can do things in that way can become rich, and the whole matter is brought within the domain of an exact science. The question arises here, whether this certain way may not be so difficult that only a few may follow it. This cannot be true, as we have seen. So far as natural ability is concerned, talented people get rich, and blockheads get rich. Intellectually brilliant people get rich, and very stupid people get rich. Physically strong people get rich, and weak and sickly people get rich. Some degree of ability to think and understand is, of course, essential. But insofar as natural ability is concerned, any man or woman who has sense enough to read and understand these words can certainly get rich. Also, we have seen that it is not a matter of environment. Location counts for something. One would not go to the heart of the Sahara and expect to do a successful business. Getting rich involves the necessity of dealing with men and of being where there are people to deal with. And if these people are inclined to deal in the way that you want to deal, so much the better. But that is about as far as environment goes. If anybody else in your town can get rich, so can you. And if anybody else in your state can get rich, so can you. Again, it is not a matter of choosing some particular business or profession. People get rich in every business and in every profession, while their next door neighbors in the same vocation remain in poverty. It is true that you will do best in a business which you like and which is congenial to you. And if you have certain talents which are well developed, you will do best in a business which calls for the exercise of those talents. Also, you will do best in a business which is suited to your locality. An ice cream parlor would do better in a warm climate than in Greenland, and a salmon fishery will succeed better in the Northwest than in Florida, where there are no salmon. But aside from these general limitations, getting rich is not dependent on your engaging in some particular business, but upon your learning to do things in a certain way. If you are now in business and anybody else in your locality is getting rich in the same business while you are not getting rich, it is because you are not doing things in the same way that the other person is doing them. No one is prevented from getting rich by lack of capital. True, as you get capital, the increase becomes more easy and rapid, but one who has capital already rich and does not need to consider how to become so. No matter how poor you may be, if you begin to do things in a certain way, you will begin to get rich and you will begin to have capital. The getting of capital is a part of the process of getting rich, and it is a part of the result which invariably follows the doing of things in a certain way. You may be the poorest man on the continent and be deeply in debt. You may have neither friends, influence, nor resources. But if you begin to do things in this way, you must infallibly begin to get rich. For like causes must produce like effects. If you have no capital, you can get capital. If you are in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. If you are in the wrong location, you can go to the right location. And you can do so by beginning in your present business and in your present location to do things in the certain way which causes success. So that is chapter 2. Now, I really love these chapters because they're not overly long and they give you really the meat and potatoes of everything. There isn't any wasted words here. And I just really appreciate how Wallace Wattles put all of this together. So he talks about there's a science of getting rich. He talks about the ownership of money and property comes as a result of doing things in a certain way. And you probably have noticed how he speaks of doing things in a certain way. And that's capitalized. Capital C, capital W, certain way. And whether or not it's on purpose or accidentally, people get rich. Now let's think about this a little bit. The law of attraction, which really came out of this particular book, talks about how things, again, we do things in a certain way, but whether on purpose or accidentally, there's something about that. I really don't think anybody can do anything by accident. There's a reason for everything. There's a cause for everything. Now, I was thinking just the other day how we really are not grateful enough for many of the things that we have. We take them for granted. Let me ask you, when you got into your vehicle today and took a drive either to work or to a store or someplace, and you came back again, did you say, hey, thank you, car, for being here. Thank you, car, for starting when I turn the key. We take it for granted. And you know what? When we take things for granted, I don't care what it is. If it happens to be a person, or if it happens to be a car, or your lawn, or your house, or your bicycle, or your brother-in-law, or yourself even. You take your body for granted. If you don't show gratitude, you won't have that very soon. If your car's been broken into, now I really don't fear having my car broken into, and I don't even lock it because I feel that if somebody wants to get in there, let them get in there. And otherwise, they're going to break the door to get in there. So I don't worry about it. And I don't have a problem. People get into accidents because they fear accidents. and what they think about comes about. So here, whether or not somebody does something on purpose or accidentally, they can still get rich. I think there is something going on in this certain way that is so easy. What he's talking about is accidentally. It was like when I was saying earlier about how when we are in our destiny and doing things in our destiny, things happen so easily it almost seems like it happens accidentally. But there's a natural law that like causes always produce like effects. So, the opposites, they talk about opposites attract, but you know what? You really get along with people that are like minded. So, really, attract attracts. So, again, he talks about getting rich is not a matter of environment, and because you can become rich anywhere that you're at. I remember a story of this woman years ago, and I wonder if Earl Nightingale talked about this woman who was a cook or a dishwasher or something. She had no education, and she talked to a professor or somebody and said she would love to get an education. She would love to do something more than what she does now. And the person said, "Well, what are you doing now? And why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, I don't have any money. I don't have this and that, and whatever." And she was done washing dishes one afternoon, and she sat out on the back porch of this place where she was cooking, and cooking and washing these pots and pans and things. And she lifted up a brick, and then she saw a little bug there, and she started studying bugs, and she ended up, the story was is that she ended up getting an education. She became a very, I don't know, famous entomologist, but a person that really knew bugs. And so she was able to become successful where she was. And the story about Acres of Diamonds, where Russell Conwell talked about how this one farmer who heard that there were diamonds and that he could make money and find diamonds, he ended up selling his farm, and the person who bought the farm found a diamond. It was the biggest diamond mine in that area. So much of our opportunity is within us, and it's close by. And I encourage you to look in your own environment because the answers are there. If you're looking to make money, all you have to do, my friend, is close your eyes. And now, before you open your eyes, say, you know what? I want to see something when I open my eye. I want to see an opportunity where I can make money, where I can create an income. And so now open your eyes, and whatever you looked at, now it could be a chair. Okay, you're looking at a chair. Well, you can build a chair, you can clean chairs, you can put something on a chair, you can put a student there and teach that student. So, anyway, whatever it is, the opportunity is around us. Doesn't matter what our environment is. As a matter of fact, Pilgrim's Progress was written in a jail cell. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're at. That's why I say that poverty and riches, it's a state of mind. You can be whatever you want, when you want, how you want, where you want. And as Wallace D. Wattles is saying, you can have all of that as long as you're doing things in a certain way. And moving on a little bit further here, he's of course talking about you might not be able to make a business in the Sahara Desert, but again, that I believe is on the surface thinking. But I think if you get alone and you have your quiet time and you ask, Here you are in the Sahara Desert. How can I make an income? How can I become rich in the Sahara Desert? And now I believe today there's a lot of oil there. But everything has grown up and whatever. But you think about in that the valley and the desert that we have here in America isn't much of a desert anymore because Las Vegas was built out there in that desert where nobody would go, and now it's a big thriving city. So everything is a possibility. We just need to become aware and don't say no to possibility. And I'm thinking, here he's saying, well, you might not succeed so much in Florida with salmon, but I think that's where you're finding salmon. But people down in Florida like to eat salmon, so you can be in the north part of our country and buy the salmon and then truck it down there, which we do, and make money. It's, it's just phenomenal how a person can earn income. So aside from those general limitations, getting rich is not dependent upon your engaging in some particular business. I remember one guy, he tried a lot of things. I have no idea what he's doing now, but this has been seriously 30, 40 years ago. And he tried trucking, no money in trucking. He tried farming, no money in farming. Well, and he tried a lot of different things, and his response was, there's no money. And I think his mindset was, he was expecting no money, so he was receiving no money, because there's plenty of successful farmers, plenty of successful truckers, and success in any type of a business. And then I think the last paragraph that Wallace D. Wattles is talking about here, you may be the poorest man on the continent. You might be deeply in debt. And so I'm looking at one of my mentors, Jeff Lerner, and wow, he was, I think, $100,000 in debt, or $50,000 in debt, or something, and that's, or maybe it was millions. I can't remember. It was probably in the millions. I'll have to ask him when I see him, but I can't remember quite. But it was astronomical. He was living in the basement of his soon-to-be ex-wife's parents' house. I mean, that had to have been pretty low. I mean, not only physically and geography, down in the basement, that's lower than the curb. That's pretty darn low. But he made it. He made it. He was deeply in debt. What is your definition of deeply in debt? You've got some bills you need to pay, but are you as much in debt as this guy? This guy had a couple of restaurants that went under, and so anyway, he was deeply in debt, and he didn't have many friends either, and he didn't have too much in the way of resources, and now he's a big internet guru, and he's helped a lot of people, and thank you for the internet. That's another thing too. Here I am working with you here on the internet, and I'm grateful to be able to do this because the internet has made things a lot more possible for teachers and consultants and coaches like myself to be able to bring this information to you and to teach you. And I'm also learning as I'm doing this as well. So if you're in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. But the definition of wrong is really between your ears. Because you can go ahead like that Acres of Diamonds and you can sell your farm, and somebody else gets that farm from you and finds those diamonds. You can be in the wrong location and then just go to the right location. I remember that years ago, somebody was in it was a multi-level, it was actually the very, very first multi-level company, and they lived in a very small town in northern Minnesota, and their sponsors up in several levels, their mentors said, you know what, If you can't find people, if you can't build your business in that little town, then you need to move. So then they moved down to the city of St. Paul, Minneapolis, or someplace in Minnesota, and they became a success because they did move. But you have to think these things out. And truly, with the internet now, you can live anywhere as long as you've got an internet connection and you can help people. That's the biggest thing, I think. If you're out there helping people, like Zig Ziglar said, you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. But you can do so by beginning in your present business and in your present location. So start where you're at right now. Remember, close your eyes, and before you close your eyes, ask yourself a question. Ask God a question. Ask the universe a question, and listen. People do not listen. And then do this on a regular basis, on a frequent basis, maybe every morning. When you wake up, before you open your eyes, ask, what can I do today? How may I make money today? Give me an idea for an invention or a business that will set me up for life. These things can happen, and you just need to listen. But always be grateful for every little thing, every person that comes into your mind, into your every idea that comes in your mind, every person that comes into your life. And so I hope you're grateful for this particular module and this entire course, and especially for W.D. Wattles, who 1910 published this. And I found out yesterday too, this gentleman passed away in 1911. So he was building up all of this information, and he published a lot of information. But here, The Secret or The Science of Getting Rich, this book has been his legacy and has lived on. So what are you going to do tomorrow morning when you wake up to do something about your legacy? Are you going to live your life and leave a legacy? That is really my motto that I live myself. I get up in the morning and I ask, am I going to be able to do something today where I'm actually living my life, something that's worthwhile? And then, have I left a legacy even just today? Have I left a footprint? Have I left a fingerprint? Have I made the world a better place because I've lived here today and because I've been granted this day, this time in life? And I don't know if Wallace Wattles understood that. Maybe he was sick or whatever, but he wrote this book, published it in 1910, 1911. He was on the other side of eternity. So I'm going to let you go and go ahead. I've got a worksheet, and take advantage of that. And again, print this, write your notes and things, and go ahead and contact me too. There should be a place there where you can do so if you're part of this. And then I'm glad to answer comments or questions or anything like that. And I really appreciate you sharing comments with other people too that have gone through this course. So that is Module 2, Chapter 2, all about there is a science of getting rich. And spend some time with this. Spend some time with these thoughts. Just don't read it once. Just don't listen to this particular module at one time. Listen to it when you're working around your desk, where maybe you're just cleaning up, you're picking up papers or something that's more of a manual kind of a thing that's a routine thing that you don't need to concentrate on. Have this playing in the background and come back to this often, because you'll find things in this module and all of the other modules the second, third, fourth, 10th time when you revisit it. So again, this is Terry Scott, the Life and Legacy Coach. Awesome being with you here. Make it a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.